The UK Medicines Regulatory Agency is expected to approve the Oxford-AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine this week for a potential rollout in that country, either later this week or in January. Joining me now live from Oxford is Independent Journalist Will Godley. Will, the news, I guess, couldn't come soon enough for the UK.
No, it couldn't. And we are facing a crisis here in the UK with this new variant of COVID-19. As we know, it's up to 70% more transmissible. So senior government officials today are saying that they will approve, or they're expecting the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine to be approved this week. And they're saying on Wednesday for the rollout of that as soon as next week. And we already have had over 600,000 Britons given their first dose of the Pfizer vaccine. And the UK government has written up a list of priority order for the number of people who are going to be vaccinated here in the UK. So for the most vulnerable, it is a welcome tonic for to soothe the anxiety that COVID has brought them over the past year. And for the rest of us, it's a glimmer of hope that the return to normal might be sooner rather than later.
Yeah, good to hear. It's a small glimmer of hope for what's been a really terrible time in the UK. And you mentioned that new variant. It has, of course, led to many countries imposing travel bans on Britain to prevent its spread. What sort of an impact is that having already?
Well, just before Christmas, when this new variant was announced and discovered, and EU countries took action to prevent this new variant from being having cases in their countries, they closed off the border, and that involved a trade ceasing to occur between the UK and France, and it resulted in a huge backlog of lorries in Dover, where the big port is in England. That has now all been cleared, and trade-wise, we're kind of back to normal. Lorry drivers are being tested on shore in France, but 6 million more Brits are under the toughest form of restriction, and joining Londoners and those in the southeast of England in this Tier 4 restriction. And it's not the only similarity. That, of course, this tougher restriction has the same messaging to the first wave of the coronavirus pandemic, where we're being told to stay at home. Where I am in Oxford is also in this toughest form of restriction, but it's not the only similarity to the first wave of the coronavirus pandemic, with hospitalizations at a similar level to what we saw in March and April. I was speaking to a senior figure in the Oxford University Hospital today who was telling me Oxford's hospitals are being overwhelmed with COVID patients, and not just the elderly, but much younger COVID patients too. So it's a worrying time with a variant that is far more transmissible here in the UK.
Yeah, not good to hear at all. Will, let's move on to Brexit now, because a European Parliament group will meet to discuss, of course, the outcome of EU-UK negotiations after that deal was agreed on Christmas Eve. Finally, a deal. How has that been received?
For Boris Johnson, a huge relief. This is something he pegged his political career on, voting leave 4.5 years ago. And so it couldn't have come soon enough. But he let it go right down to the wire, where both sides of the negotiations stood back from their table on Christmas Eve and were satisfied with the deal that had been struck. All that needs to happen now is for MPs to vote on this deal here in the UK and also in EU nations. And in the UK, that voting is happening on the 30th of December. But of course, it has to pass that vote. So government is talking very favourably for this deal and hoping that it will pass on the 30th of December, due to come into effect 1st of January, when we're expected to crash out of the EU, when our transition period is over. And I mean, government are very, very happy with this new deal. On Christmas Eve, there was a huge round of applause when it was announced that the deal had been reached. And Michael Gove, senior cabinet minister charged with preparing for no-deal Brexit, was said to be rejoicing at the fact that this had been agreed. But what does it mean for Brits? Well, for those people involved in trading with the EU, it's a free trade agreement. So they will be reassured that there's a level of certainty that they can still trade here in the UK with those in Europe. freely, as long as there's that level playing field that government talks about where trade is happening fairly. But also for Britons, it is, it's going to affect us when we travel in Europe, and that is probably the biggest change it's going to have. We're going to be joining you Aussies in the rest of the world queue at European airports on our summer holidays.